All right, our last two problems here. Question 21, I kind of have set up here. Again, it's Mount Rushmore, and all we know is the angle of elevation to the top of Mount Rushmore's faces and the angle of elevation to the bottom. So you can see my amazing picture there. And yes, those are sideburns again from George Washington and Abe Lincoln's hat and beard. So we got them all covered. 60 feet from top to bottom, angle of elevation to top to bottom there. So the other thing I've set up for us is just the basic trig side of that. And that would be the distance from the top of the first triangle to the top of the second triangle. That distance was 60 feet. The remaining distance then from the bottom to the first triangle, we're going to call that h minus 60. And the reason is the distance of the overall big triangle, we're going to call that h. And we know the distance from the top of one to the top of the other is 60. So the distance of just that smaller triangle, we call that h minus 60. The other thing to note is I'm going to call this horizontal distance here d, and you'll see why we need to label that. But we can label that d for both triangles because each triangle has that same horizontal distance. So when we do this, I'm going to look at these two triangles and I'm going to say, let's look at the bigger triangle, the 48-degree triangle. And I'm going to see that the trig ratio we're using is going to be opposite. So from angle 48 degrees, we're working with the opposite side as well as the adjacent side. So that's our tangent function. So tangent of 48 degrees, sorry, kind of put it in there. Tangent of 48 degrees is equal to the h over d ratio. We also have the trig ratio for that 44.76 degree line of sight. So that one is tangent as well. And this time, the opposite side is the h minus 60. And the adjacent side, again, is d. So what I need to do first is I need to get both of these equations written in terms of d. What I mean is I want d to be by itself. So if I look at the first equation, I'm going to draw that one down here. If I rewrite that, when I multiply both sides by d, I divide both sides by tangent 48, and by now we should all remember that's how it works. We just replace, or we flip-flop places of those two, the tangent in the denominator. So d is just equal to h over the tangent of 48 degrees. The other one, we're going to come down here. This one, again, we replace it the same way. D is equal to h minus 60 over tan of our angle, 44.76. And the reason we do that is that we now have two equations and we have two unknowns. We have d as an unknown. We have h as an unknown. They're both variables. But we can use deductive reasoning and say, hey, you know what? D is really equal to d. Right? We can say like 2 is equal to 2. It's a really kind of obvious statement. But in this case, it's helpful because if we know that d is equal to itself, but we also know that d is represented by two separate equations, the first up here and the second one here, then we can rewrite d equals d as equation 1 equal to equation 2. So let's do that. I'll kind of, a little divider, I'll even change colors for this one. Let's go to blue. So now we have h over tangent 48, equation 1 is equal to equation 2, h minus 60. see, what we've done is allowed us to now have one equation, left side equals right side, one equation and one unknown, and that would be the h. So if we take that h and get it by itself, h represents the overall height. And what I didn't say at the beginning of the video, but is good to know right now, is it's asking, find the total height of Mount Rushmore. Well, that's h. That's this number right here, and we're about to solve for that. So when we have two fractions set equal to each other, we can cross multiply, and we can say that the top left times the bottom right is equal to the top right times the bottom left. Let's go orange for this one. So the next one, we're going to rewrite that. So we say h times tangent 44 I'm going to shorthand that just because I want to have some room left over for another column of work here. So we have h tan 44. What did I do wrong? Oh, that's why. H tangent of 44.76 is equal to h minus 60 tangent of 48. See, I didn't need to shorthand anything. So at this point, we have h on both sides of the equation. One of it's even inside of parentheses. The next step we have to take is we need to get this divided out. We need to get h by itself, and right now it's in some parentheses. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave the left side alone. Now I will shorthand that 44.76 to just be 44. Because I'm going to have to take tangent 48 times h and then tangent 48 times 60. So that's h times tangent 48 minus 60 times tangent 48. So now we have everything distributed out. The only parentheses we have are around the angle, but we don't have a parentheses to distribute. So we have term 1, term 2, and term 3. What we want to do is get the h terms on the same side of the equation together and any non-h terms on the other side. So what that means is we're going to take and add the 60 tan 48, and we'll get rid of this, and those cancel, and we add 60 tan 48 over here. So now we have h times tangent 44.76 plus 60 tangent of 48. That's what we have on the left side. Okay, so that's the next line, right? I just described it, but now I've rewritten it. Now, our h's are still on opposite sides of the equation, so now I'm going to subtract h tan from both sides, tan 44. And what we get is the 60 tan 48. This is a new line. Let's go color. So what we're left with, so right, like these two canceled. And they didn't cancel, they reduced out. So 60 tangent 48 is equal to h tan of 48 minus h tan of 44.76. Now we finally have h's on both h's on one side of the equation. We can factor that out. I'm just going to leave it as, the left side doesn't change. We're going to factor that h out and say tan 48. So we've got the h almost by itself. All we have to do is divide both sides by tan 48 minus tan 44.76. When we do that, I'm going to write it as best I can. So h equals 60 times tan 48 all over tan 48 minus tan 44.76. And we see what our answer is. Let me put that in the calculator. There it is. So looking at that, it's the numerator 60 times tangent 48. Answer divided by, in parentheses, tan 48 minus tan 44.76. Close parentheses. I hit enter. The answer is 560.18. And put it in units of feet. We have a final answer. There we go. 12 minutes, but I got question 21 done. I'm going to take a break, and I will get question 22 out of the way.